I am going to go ahead and give a enthusiastic welcome to Economic Alliance Snohomish County coffee chat. This morning is Tuesday, obviously the 30th, and it is still Women's History Month for those of you wondering. So keep that in mind. We have a great opportunity to have a conversation about some specific items tied to business, and that is export. So without further ado, I'd like to do a little bit of housekeeping updates. So make sure that you place your organizational name in the chat, and please be active in the chat so that we can have a robust conversation with our speakers. And please remember to stay online, engage, enjoy. And now I'd like to throw it to my colleague, Mr. Matt Smith, Director of Economic Development. Matt, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to South Everett. If you're concerned about geography, I'm glad you could join us. Getting right to the meat of the matter, unless you're a vegan, and I apologize for that, getting right to the cabbage of the matter. Exports are a major part of U.S. commerce, but a lot of organizations don't engage or don't really know how to pursue it. We like to talk about the importance of international trade to the region, and that certainly includes Snohomish County. The reality is that a lot of that international trade prominence that everybody's talking about really has to do with aerospace and some of the supply chain that goes with it, as well as select industries. We have a very strong presence in medical device here in Snohomish County. Sonosite and Philips are global players, so they're shipping product around the world. Fluke is shipping product around the world. But when you get down to the smaller organizations, certainly my personal sense is there's curiosity, but there's not a lot of activity going on. And part of that may be just hesitation or a lack of knowledge that really affirms that you too can be an exporter. So the purpose of this morning's discussion is to let all of you, and then hopefully your colleagues, because you'll share what you learn, let all of you know that there are services here in the region that can help you understand, are there opportunities? And if the opportunities are possible, how do you pursue them? So that's the objective this morning, is to talk about programs. And then also we have one of our local companies, Scuttlebutt Brewing, has been successful in exports, and they will be joining us later in the morning, kind of as not really a case study, but just as an example of what happens when you pursue it and how successful you can be. So we're going to proceed this morning in the following order. First, we'll hear from Isabel DeWolf, who runs the export program for the Washington State Department of Commerce. In the good old days where people went to the office, Isabel's office and Isabel's team were located in the Weston building, right in downtown Seattle. So Isabel will kick us off with programs that are available at the state level. Then we'll hand off to Diane Mooney, who runs the local office for the U.S. Department of Commerce, their Export Assistance Center. She's also in downtown Seattle. And then we'll get to Doug, who's with Scuttlebutt Brewing, and he can talk about what's going on in the world of beer. So with that limited introduction, and with the interest of getting to the heart of the matter, I'm going to hand it off to Isabel. So Isabel, welcome, and please take the podium.
So yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Matt, for inviting me this morning. I'm really excited to be here and share with you what we do at the Washington State Department of Commerce. So yes, my name is Isabel DeWolf, and I manage the international trade team within the Office of Economic Development and Competitiveness. So our international trade team assists small and medium-sized businesses enter and expand into foreign markets. Our team includes 4 international trade specialists, and we have 10 overseas representatives to assist small businesses get connected with potential buyers, distributors, or partners. We also manage the STEP grant, which is a federal program funded by the US SBA to help small businesses access the global marketplace. And I will provide some more details afterwards, in a few minutes. So our offices are co-located downtown Seattle with the US Export Assistance Center, Exim Bank, the SBA Office of International Trade, and the Export Finance Assistance Center of Washington. So it's really a one-stop shop for export assistance. So now I'm going to share with you a few slides. If you bear with me, let's see, I need to share. So I'm going to share my screen. Here we are. Sorry. Okay, I think you see it now. So why it's important for Washington companies to start exporting or expand into new markets? As you probably know, export increases sales, diversifies risks, and
Isabel, I'm not seeing your screen. Is anybody else seeing it? Gary, are you? No, okay.
Okay. Sorry.
There we go.
There we go.
Sorry about that. Technology. So now I'm gonna. Oops. Here we are. So yeah, as I was saying, can you see it here? Okay. So as I was saying, I was sharing the importance of exports for Washington companies, and because it increases sales, diversifies risks, and creates jobs. And also, 80% of the purchasing power outside of the United States, 80% of the purchasing power outside of the United States, it represents really a tremendous opportunities for Washington companies. And also in 2018, 59% of exporters reported exported only to one country. So there are many opportunities. And also it's more important than ever for companies to diversify their client base. So here is a map that shows where our offices are located. We have 10 of them. And the ones that are in blue are the ones we have started working with in the last year or so. And those, it's very important to have representatives, especially during COVID time, because they're boots on the ground. They represent our companies in country. They do for us webinars so you can discover new export opportunities. They attend trade shows that are taking place in Asia, representing our companies. And they organize customized B2B meetings for you. And it's a fantastic way to get ready before international travel resumes. So here are some of the work we have been doing, how we pivoted since the start of the pandemic. We have been organizing virtual workshops, and we have been partnering with Diane Mooney and her team and other key partners. We have been organizing one-on-one meetings and training sessions to really help our companies and provide the technical assistance. We have been focusing in the last few months on optimizing websites, developing online strategies, and e-commerce. And also, as I said, we have been organizing lots of B2B matchmaking meetings with the help of our overseas representatives. And I'd like to mention one of an upcoming webinar that might be of interest to you. That's going to be focusing on ag tech and export opportunities in Brazil. That will take place on April 13th. So as far as trade shows, yes, there's no travel right now. There are no trade shows in Europe, but there are some trade shows in Asia and in the UAE. So here is one that might be of interest to you. One's taking place in the UAE in June at Arab Health, and one which is going to be 100% virtual at Hannover Messe, Germany. And if you are interested to participate, please contact us. There's going to be a slide with the list of all our trade representatives who can help you. And also, we're going to organize a virtual mission to the UAE, focusing on digital space. So here's a picture, or a few pictures from the Paris Air Show, where we went in 2019. So as you can see, it's a fantastic opportunity to provide great visibility to our companies to attend those trade shows with us. We are usually located in a main, we're facing a main aisle. We help you set up meetings before you come. So I really encourage you to contact us about those trade shows. Since the pandemic, we have been organizing virtual events, and this is what we call an AI meetup. We had 355 participants from Japan and and startups based in the Puget Sound. And here is the rendering of a booth that's it's not virtual, actually. We had staff at that show. It was in the UAE, and companies could be represented by our overseas representative. And here is the rendering of a Washington State booth, but that's one that's completely virtual. It was at ADSS that took place here in March. And here you can recognize Matt. It was a show we did in Paris, for a composite show. So we have a program that really is fantastic to help small and medium-sized companies start exporting or expand their exports. It's the STEP program. It's funded by the US Small Business Administration, and we apply each year for this STEP program. And this year we were awarded the largest grant from all the US states. It was 1.3 million. And companies can apply for a voucher up to $10,000 total per year, but you can submit up to 3 applications. So that's how we can really effectively help you with your export strategy. So here are a few eligible expenses for our program. I'm not going to go over all of them, but I just want to mention that now is a good time to develop your website, develop an online strategy, and you can benefit from up to $10,000 to do that. So please give us a call and we'll help you with that. And then when trade show starts again, you can apply for a voucher to attend trade shows. So here are just some information about the program. As I said, you can you can submit up to 3 applications. But what's very important is that you need to apply before you pay for any of the expenses. And it's based on the reimbursement system. So once we'll be happy to answer your questions about that. So how do you know if you are eligible? So you need to meet the SBA criteria for a small business concern, and to be in business for at least 1 year, demonstrate that you are export ready, and be registered to the business in Washington State. So here's a website where you can log in to learn more about the program, or you can call us and we'll be more than happy to walk you through. So here's the list of the team, and thank you. I hope I didn't go over my 10 minutes.
No, thank you very much, Isabel. Let's move on from the state to the federal level. So Diane Mooney, you're now in control.
Ooh, I like that. Okay.
There you go.
Well, good morning, everybody. Hello. Thanks, Matt. Good morning, and thank you, Matt, and to the Economic Alliance of Snohomish County. And I'm happy to be here to talk about exporting. I'm happy to talk about it anytime. And I feel like I also have to say hello from Edmonds, right? Since Matt highlighted. Yes, I'm there, here in Edmonds. Isabel, thank you for setting the stage for our coffee chat. I am going to also share a few slides. And I just also wanted to point out, Isabel, and for everybody else, the export voucher, the STEP voucher information was dropped into the chat. And I'll be referencing a couple things in my 10 minutes here this morning, and I will also later drop them into the chat. And I believe that our presentations will be shared as well, so you'll have access to that information that we reference, so you don't have to scribble wildly. I'm going to just share a few things here. And given my unfamiliarity with Zoom, I'm probably the only person in the United States that's not using this right now, me and all my federal government colleagues. I hope you are seeing my screen now.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Great. Well, let me see if I can actually then move on. We are the U.S. Department of Commerce. I'm the director here in Seattle of the U.S. Export Assistance Center, as Matt mentioned, also called the Commercial Service Seattle. We're part of the U.S. Department of Commerce's International Trade Administration. And so, yes, we are indeed the federal government partner to the Washington State Department of Commerce. And as Isabel noted, we are all co-located together happily in Seattle in normal times, and in unnormal times, we are working from our homes like the rest of you. Our mission is actually pretty simple. We work with small and medium-sized companies to help them export their products, services, and technologies. And we do that as part of a very, very large global network of U.S. embassies and consulates around the world. So we have operations in about 80 countries that can give you on-the-ground support. And just to make things really easy, it's just best to access our global network right through me. I can provide you with all of those introductions that you need rather than approaching any of our offices directly because they don't know who you are and they want to ask me who you are and if you're real. So the other thing probably to note too, between my team and Isabel's team and the rest of our state and other trade partners, we have a motto of there is no wrong door. So whoever approaches us, even if you might not be the right match for our particular agency, we can get you to the right agency. And I think that's particularly salient now, since we're going to also be talking with Doug and Scuttlebutt, because they skirt that a very gray area for both of our agencies, which is fun because in the world of booze, in the world of beer, spirits, and other items like that, wine, we work with many of those companies as a value-added product, but for example, we wouldn't work with exporting commodity grapes. So there are some differences, and I think Isabel they mince that also in a different way, but also good to note that that STEP grant that Isabel mentioned, we do fund a lot of the wine, beer, and spirit export-related projects as well. In any case, because of our vast network, we really can open doors for you, and we really want to see you succeed because your success is our success. So how do we do that? I'm just going to quickly just talk about 4 buckets, I guess, for lack of a better word, about export counseling, market intelligence, business matchmaking, and commercial diplomacy. So in the first one, export counseling, in the non-COVID world, we want to sit down with you at your place of business and see what you do. And we want to understand what it is that you do so we can help you determine what you might need. In many cases, that's export documentation, import regulations, it might be trade finance. What we have seen a lot during the pandemic is a lot of companies have approached us for assistance in maximizing their websites for international sales. And that's really a very new area for us, really over the last few years. We've developed some expertise, and we're working with our state and federal partners to bring that expertise to our Washington State exporting community. So all of you in Snohomish County, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. Just chat a little bit about market intelligence, because we have so many offices around the world, and those are staffed by local hires. So for example, our office in Germany, our offices, we have many, are staffed by locally engaged hires. So in other words, local members of the community who understand the landscape, the exporting, or in that case, the importing landscape in Germany, and can really be a lot of assistance to you. They produce a lot of market research that's available on our trade.gov website, that's available to any of you, usually by industry sector or by country snapshot. And some of the other things that they do is they do background checks, so financial due diligence, and they do a lot of analyzing of market potential for you. The third item, business matchmaking, is really my favorite thing that we do, because I think that we do it very well, and that is connecting you with pre-screened potential partners. So that might be finding you an end user, a customer, maybe a distributor, a representative, whatever it is that you need, your sales channel to get you to export into a particular market overseas. And commercial diplomacy, that is just helping you to overcome trade obstacles. I think a good example of that, because this is one that people go, huh, you know, I think you hear in the news, Boeing, you know, we do a lot of commercial diplomacy to help sell Boeing aircraft everywhere in the world. But what that means for you, which is the small and medium-sized business, we worked with a bike tire manufacturer who could not sell their bike tires in Germany because the standards in Germany were different by about 1/8 of an inch. And so we worked with the German government to make sure that we could change those standards to make sure that our bicycle manufacturers were not kicked out of that. They're not able to sell in that German market because of a trade obstacle. So for any of these services, again, you just contact us. And we will start the process. I'm going to show my staff a little bit later. I am sharing this slide just because I think it's a great visual representation of all of our offices, not only around the world, but in the United States as well. So if you have friends in other states, there is one of me there and an office there to assist you as well. This kind of the hot map is interesting for us because it's changing all the time with offices that have had to operate virtually during a pandemic, which is basically all of us, and some that have had to really minimize their services. But it also is a great example of the offices and the footprint that we have overseas. As I mentioned, the pandemic is creating a situation where we are offering only virtual services and in some cases limited services. But that pandemic has also created a real opportunity and a real need we found for website globalization. And I'm including this slide here. I don't expect you to look at it. I'm sure it's small on your screen and you'll have that a little bit later. But we offer a service called the Website Globalization Review, which is really helping you internationalize your business's website because it might not be appropriate for all markets. And we've learned a lot over the last number of years. I mean, little things like how search engines work and how you want to meta tag your data. You know, what is a tree with your meta tags and how is that presented overseas? What kinds of things are you asking for? Because in Vietnam, many people are just buying website by the minute, right? They're buying their internet service by the minute. So if you have 50 fields they need to fill in before they can get to your product, you're going to lose them right away. That's a very, very simplistic explanation of what a website globalization review is. But we check out your search engine. We do a search engine optimization. We can provide some strategic direction for you. We can introduce you to others who can help you take it to the next level and offer follow-on coaching. And you can read that, and there'll be a click for you at the bottom left-hand side when you get that as well. And we found also over the last couple of years, and especially during the pandemic, that there are a lot of e-commerce issues that our small and medium-sized businesses have. And we are really trying to position ourselves with our state and other federal partners to help you guys mitigate those and make sure that you are in the best position to sell internationally. Again, this is not what we do normally. We are, as I said, sort of looping back. Our mission is to help small and medium-sized companies export their products, services, and technologies. But as the world changes, we're finding what that looks like is always a little bit different. I am lucky to be co-located with Isabel's team in Seattle, and I have a team of fabulous international trade specialists as well. And we are all organized by industry sector. So just a little minute to talk about, again, in Snohomish County, there's a lot of you guys in the aerospace and defense community, and a lot of you in the Boeing supply chain that we also help to sell to other aerospace OEMs. So I work with those aerospace and defense companies, and my specialty is in export controls. But I have staff who works with the maritime and agribusiness community, as well as the education sector. Bob Dean works with healthcare and building materials, value-added wood products, and those kinds of things. My newest trade specialist, Alex, she works with consumer goods and automotive. Thomas is our information communications technology specialist, as well as energy and advanced manufacturing. And Lisa White, I have a commercial officer working on safety and security, tourism, and FDI, foreign direct investment, because we do a lot more of that than we used to. I'm going to loop back to Thomas just for a second, because I mentioned the e-commerce and the programs that we were doing out of our e-commerce innovation lab. And all of you have the opportunity to sign up at the last minute right now for our digital strategy webinar. And hopefully you can see that. Again, I will share that in the chat. But our last one is tomorrow. These are free events, and this is the e-commerce, this is the digital strategy for companies that I mentioned. We talk about the website globalization review. You actually can win a free one. We talk about, this is an old slide, so it says $6,000 in grant funding. That's $10,000 now for Isabel's services via the STEP grant. So if you have time tomorrow to participate in those, and you, again, I'll drop that in the chat, you are not too late to register for that, and we would love to see you all there. And I believe that is really all that I have. I look forward to any questions and maybe some more of a chat. I already drank my coffee early so I could be awake to talk cogently here, so early in the morning. And I guess I will turn it back over to Matt, who is then going to turn it over to Doug, if I think that's right.
Right. Yes. Thanks, Diane. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I encourage everybody to think about this website globalization and recognize that it's much more than just asking Google to translate a language. You can really make some big mistakes by going with Google's translations, or just not understanding how words and phrases are interpreted in another language. So don't pass up on this opportunity. So next on the table is our Doug Tidy, who is with Scuttlebutt. There he is. Hi, Doug.
Hey, good morning.
Glad you could make it. Doug is one of our successful local craft brewers who's probably been around longer than many of the other ones. Their product is in retail. It's in your local bar when you can go there. They've got a great restaurant at the Port of Everett and a tap room. I'm customers of both. So I wanted Doug to come in and talk about, as a successful company, what does it mean to be an exporter? Why did you start? And what's going on today? So Doug, you're in charge.
Okay, great. Thanks. I appreciate you having me here. I'll give you the very brief background on Scuttlebutt Brewing. We were founded by a husband and wife in 1995, Phil and Cynthia Bannon. So we are celebrating our 25th anniversary this year, in fact, this summer. We have currently 2 retail locations in the city of Everett, and of course we have our production facility as well. So in terms of size for craft breweries, we are not particularly large. Frankly, we would be considered a mid-sized regional craft brewery. We are at any given day in the top 20, say, in the state of Washington in terms of production. So in terms of barrels produced. We have currently, we do business here in in exactly 6 states, and we export to Japan and China, China being the big one. Japan's really a pretty marginal piece of business. We got into export via the agricultural channel. So it was, when I first started at Scuttlebutt, I was the sales manager, and we're looking for ways to get ourselves outside of the dependence on third parties, which is basically how the traditional craft beer or beer scene generally works, is you have the producer, the distributor, and then of course your retailers. And distributors can hold quite a lot of say, and they're sort of market makers in a way, which can be a frustrating dynamic to deal with. And so we were looking for ways to get outside of that, or at least diversify our business model. and started looking into export, and I started via simple web searches and got in touch with the Washington State Department of Agriculture. And through the Department of Ag, got put in touch with an outfit called WUSADA. So beer obviously is an agricultural product. 95% of the raw ingredients are grain and hops grown here in the state of Washington. So WUSADA is the Western United States Agricultural Trade Association, and they offer a whole lot of business support services, grants, things like that to get you started as a small business, small agricultural business anyway. So that's how we came to it. From the time I started attending various ag seminars and matchmaking, I was put in touch to the USDA, who has trade missions and positions all over major port cities all over the world. And got put in touch with them. And it took about 18 months from the time that I started down the path of trying to find a significant piece of business overseas to where I finally got matched up with somebody, and then in China. And from there, it was darn near another year before we really got things opened up and started shipping. So as of right now, like I said, Japan is very small, very niche for us. There's more in that market. I've done a trade mission over there through USADA. There's more there. We haven't been able to get much going, but in China currently, we send one 40-foot container a month, which for us that's about 1,400 cases per. And this year we're on track to do about $250,000 in business and export to China alone. In the past, we have done through this link, through the ag link, I have done export to Korea, Russia, the UK, and I got linked up for a while, again, through somebody's table was next to mine at one of the trade missions, to Super Value, which is based down in Tacoma, or their Tacoma office, and we were sending beer to Carrefour throughout Southeast Asia. The only one, frankly, that really stuck was China, and that's where we're working with an outfit called Just Mart. They're based in Beijing, and we send our beer to one of two ports, either to Greater Beijing or Shanghai. It just depends on what they tend to alternate back and forth. So, and the way it works is we send it to the exporter, and they arrange, we just do ex works pricing. They arrange all the shipping and put us in touch with a freight carrier. And so we sell from our dock, it leaves, we put the, put the seal on the container, and off it goes. So we are not responsible for any of the costs associated with the shipping. We have done that in the past, and it's obviously an extra layer of complexity and so on, and how do we protect ourselves in that. But, the challenge for us as a small business, the production brewery side where I work, I mean, we have about 50 full-time employees at Scuttlebutt altogether. The majority of that, though, is restaurant, bar, and kitchen staff at our pub. So there's a core of about, there's 10 of us now at the production brewery. That includes sales staff, bookkeeper, head brewer, brew staff, bottling techs, and so on. So we're a pretty small outfit. So the challenge for us would be trying to get to those markets, say, when we send beer to Russia, we knew we were never going to be able to get over there and support it in person. As far as China goes now, pre-COVID, we do attend a yearly trade show and make sure we try and get there and meet people face to face, because that's really important. But besides that, there's really not much we can do. So being small and dealing in a highly regulated agricultural product that is susceptible to spoilage, we really had to make sure we found the right partner to get to those volumes. So it took quite a while to get it there. And yeah, I guess I would kind of hand it to you and ask what specific questions you think you'd like for me to answer, or anything else that you'd, where you want to go from here.
Doug, one question I'd like you to address is a regulatory influence. You're not sending just any plain old piece of cotton fiber. Certainly it's regulated here in the United States. What are the implications or the complexities, if any, of sending alcohol across the globe?
From the US standpoint, there's really not much. The TTB, which is the Tax Trade Bureau, which used to be the I forget what they even used to be. At any rate, the federal government doesn't really, the only thing that we have to do is get from the feds what's called the health certificate. And frankly, all that is you just email the feds, and the Chinese side, the customs side, and the Japanese side are more concerned that we have this piece of paper that says we're made under sanitary conditions. And for us, that's simply sending something, a piece of a digital file to Washington, D.C., they stamp it and send it back to us. So on our side, there's not much to it. What we did have to do at startup, some of the front end work was more concerned with the nutritional value. So that was some cost up front for us, was getting the nutritional values, the carbs, the, breaking down everything, which, here in the United States, you don't have to do. You don't need a nutrition panel like you would for, say, any food product. Beer is not regulated that way. Beer, wine, you just had to have your ABV. So that was new for us because we were not required to have any nutritional value. So I had to get together all of that information, and really it's just a health certificate, and the nutritional information was sort of the front end loaded stuff. Other than that, it's a pretty streamlined process once we got set up. As far as actual alcohol leaving the country, the US, the TTB doesn't really, they just kind of shrug at it. They're more interested, I think, in taxes. And, it's a pretty straightforward process. Oh, hey, you're muted there. I'm sorry, I can't hear that.
I have this weird thing on my computer. Sometimes when I'm in a Zoom, the mouse disappears. I can't tell where it is. Do you see a lot of growth opportunities? Scuttlebutt going to China. There's a lot of drinkers in China. Mm-hmm. So is it a niche market that looks for craft brewery as a kind of a trend or a style issue? Or do you, in your planning, think that you're going to get to a point where it's more than one box a month?
I would love for it to be. And yes, we anticipate to keep growing. The first year, this is our third year in business, really doing some significant business over in China. And, we were sending, we started with 3 orders in a year, went to 7. And like I say, this year, so far, we're doing 1 a month, which is a container a month. And yeah, from our standpoint, the growth is, there's never unlimited growth, obviously, but there is an enormous amount of opportunity over there. And there is some, in communicating with our partner, they do want specific styles, which are different from the US. One of the main differences, and which is actually a real challenge for us, is the packaging. Here in the US, craft beer has gone with very good reason to the aluminum can package as far as, packaging craft beer. And there's been a real swing in that way, which is really a superior product in every way, from, just efficiencies in terms of weight, and, a pallet of beer with cans can fit 100 cases, a pallet of beer with bottles can fit 56, the recyclability, all of that. However, China has almost zero interest. They don't want any of our cans at all. So we have to send bottles over there, which is okay for us because being what is generally considered a legacy craft brewery, 25 years in the craft beer world is old. So for us, we started with bottles, and we own a bottling line. So for us, that's a pretty simple transaction. A lot of new brewers either use mobile bottlers, which is a lot lower margin game because they don't own their own equipment. So we're sort of fortunate to have that built-in infrastructure to service what they want. As far as beer styles go, they started just buying from our core lineup. And as time has gone on, they've asked for more adjunct heavy beers, and adjuncts being basically flavoring additives that aren't in, traditional beer, which is, hops, water, yeast, grain. So they love the flavored stuff. We do a coffee coconut dark ale. We do a pineapple hefeweizen. We do, and they've really asked for more and more of that. So, the national palate is a little different. Certainly the packaging preference is different. And so in that way, I kind of view it as being, maybe 5-6 years behind where the US is. Cans were really seen as the realm of macro brews of your Budweisers and Millers and so on, and craft beer wouldn't be caught dead in a can, 10, 15, even 6, 7 years ago. It was a really different market. And so they're kind of lagging a little bit in that aspect to me. But it's what they want, and we're in a fortunate position to be able to supply them with that.
Got it. Thank you much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So now we're going to move on, and they say in the sporting world, I'm going to pull an audible here. It's easy for people to say, oh, there's no market for my product or service, or how do I find somebody overseas that wants my stuff? And actually what instigated this whole thought in my brain a while ago was livestock. So I'm inviting Linda Nunzig to join the conversation, and I'm assuming Katie's going to make that happen. I see her face. Hi, Linda. Linda are you a farmer or a rancher? What's the right term?
Well, if you're in Eastern Washington, you're a rancher. If you're in Western Washington, you're a farmer.
Got it. So Linda's up in Arlington.
Yes.
She raises sheep, and she's been selling livestock. And I thought that was most unusual. So I wanted Linda to take a few minutes to explain, how does a farmer in Arlington connect with somebody who wants to buy your sheep in Thailand? So please elaborate.
I started probably 20 plus years ago exporting to Canada and Mexico. And those were direct exports from people that wanted to buy sheep from me for their own personal farms. And then from there, it grew very quickly with the Philippines. The Philippines has two different types of importing that they're doing. They will put out a tender, the federal government will, to buy a large number of animals to either send out to subsistence farmers or to keep on their sheep station there, breed them, and then send out animals to subsistence farmers. The purpose being to use our animals, which are a hair sheep, similar to what they have there, but with a higher meat production. They are going to produce more meat per animal. So if you've only got room on some of these very small pieces of land for 2 or 3 animals, if you can increase the amount of meat each of those is producing, you're helping that farmer that much more. So we did that for a number of years with the Philippines. The largest export that we did was 180 animals, but sometimes it'll be 10, 20, 30 animals. Then 2 years ago, we were contacted by a broker for Thailand, and they also were looking for some Katahdin hair sheep. We started out just sending what did we send? About 3 rams, I think, to Thailand the first time. Then last year they contacted me and said they would buy every ewe lamb that I had available. So we sent 30 total, including a couple rams, and those are under 6 months. And then they've just contacted me again to see if I have any more out of that group. So we'll send another half dozen down in the next few weeks. And then they've got an order in for this coming summer, and they'll take all of our ewe lambs and a few more ram lambs. The most difficult thing with livestock is they're alive. And so you have to get them from point A to point B and have them be healthy. So how we manage those animals and how we get them ready for export is going to be different than how we would raise our regular animals. We're going to make sure that they're a little fatter when they go because we know they're going to have weight loss. The other thing with exporting livestock is you have to go through so much more. He just mentioned a health certificate and it's the federal government just signs off on it. Not so much with sheep. Every single animal has to go through a thorough health exam with a veterinarian. On top of that, we have to send blood work off to South Dakota State University, and those animals have to be tested for 5 different diseases to make sure that we are not taking any diseases that we have in the United States and getting them to Thailand, or getting them to Philippines or Canada or Mexico. So there's a lot behind doing this. Working with a broker has definitely been the easiest and the hardest way to do it. You know, the good thing is that they're more familiar with it. The bad thing is you can have a bad broker. You know, you can have a broker that says, you know, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And, you know, well, nothing leaves the farm until it's paid for, period. And sometimes that can be a real process. When you're exporting livestock, they have to go into a quarantine facility, or I will set up a quarantine facility here. When we did the large number of 180, we set up our own quarantine station here, which is difficult because you have to have space from all other animals. Has to be approved by a state veterinarian. There's a lot that goes into it. The last export that we sent out, they left in January. They were set to ship out of LA about 30 days later after they were done with their quarantine. Those animals are still sitting there. I mean, they're paid for, so they're not my animals anymore. The import permit from Thailand got denied. So these are the things that can happen. So they've resubmitted for that import permit and they should be leaving shortly. So as you can see, exporting livestock, it's a whole different ball game. You know, that and you got to keep these animals alive and healthy when they arrive at their destination. So
Great.
I guess much different.
Thank you very much, Linda. My purpose here was to let everybody think broadly about, can I sell my product or services outside the United States? It can be a default to say nobody wants it, but I mean, who would have thought somebody wanted sheep? So Linda's a great example. Thank you. So we're going to move into the Q&A section. I do have a question here from one of our attendees, and I'm not quite sure I understand it. Anil, Katie, can Anil unmute or talk and elaborate on the question? Anil, are you there? Maybe not. So Diane or Isabel, if you can see the Q&A, the question is, how do we scale services to export, specifically IT services? Is there specific help for this from the agency? So I believe both of you had people on staff that work on ICT. Either one of you?
Yes, absolutely. Julie Monahan in our team works with companies in the ICT sector. And what we would do is organize a call to understand what the product is, if it's a software or what kind of service it is, and target a country and work with our consultants and organize meetings. And because definitely exporting services, I mean, it's an export, it's very important for the state. I mean, this is a key sector for us. So we can definitely help. And also, we often do joint calls with the staff from Diane Mooney's staff. So because we work together, we're in the same building. We have often the same clients. We offer different services. So probably would have a member of Diane Mooney on the call and see how we can support them.
Okay. Diane, anything you want to add?
No, it would be helpful to know what exactly, what kind of IT services we're talking about. Obviously, some are exportable, but some may not be exportable. So yeah, just reach out to, for Anil, reach out to me or Isabel, and we'll put you in touch with the right person for assistance. And since I'm speaking just a second, I wanted to loop back to something that Doug said. He explained so nicely some of the different tastes, preferences around the world and some of the labeling preferences around the world. And I don't know if any of the folks on our call today are in the beer, wine, or spirits, or in the food sector, like candies or anything like that. We offer a virtual tasting service, which has mostly been done in the wine sector, to be honest, where you ship your wine to, say, Hong Kong, and our office in Hong Kong assembles a panel of drinkers, or of importers of alcohol, and they will sample live on screen here, like we're doing today, the alcohol or the wine, and then they can give commentary as to which kinds are more preferable to the market. We've done this with candies as well, and that's a very specific a taste preference. So when you're exporting, say, your very sweet candies to Japan, maybe you're one of your chocolate companies here, they might not like that and might make suggestions for candies, maybe a green tea chocolate or something that might sell better in the market there. And we've really seen a lot of these going on during the pandemic. I think it's kind of a fun way to do some of the more challenging things that we have had to all endure lately. But to see that happen in a live situation is something that's really fun for us to set up. And I think it's really rewarding for you guys as companies to see your products being used, sampled, tasted, and feedback provided as well. So that's one thing. And then also, like Doug mentioned, with the labeling and, putting nutrition information on beer is something that you might not think of, but, by the same token, you might not think of selling your items in Canada. You need to have English and French on your label there. So there's a lot of these little nuances that all of the exporters have talked about. And Linda, with, sheep and the quarantines and the certificates and things like that, those are all very interesting and amplified by the Suez Canal crisis, I'm sure. I am sure there was livestock on those ships. So those kinds of challenges and one thing just sort of begets another, were they insured? You need your insurance and things like that. So I can spin on the topic endlessly, but just thought I would take the floor and answer one more thing there.
Great. Let me go to a question, which is why export? And the context is we're here in the United States and or North America. Geographically and from a head count, we're a huge market. So if you're a small business in Snohomish County, you can probably say to yourself, boy, it'd really be great if I could find a customer in Spokane or Boise or Denver. Why throw exports into that mix? Do companies do it because of some psychic reward that they can say I'm an exporter? Do they find it's more profitable to export product overseas? What, in your experience, what is it that those that try it and stay in it, why do they stay in it? Either one.
Your market here is actually quite small. Your consumers are all outside of the United States, really. Think about your large, I think statistics vary, but we usually cite that at least 90 to 95% of your export, your market is outside of the United States. Your market is very, very proscribed when it is in Snohomish County or sending things to Spokane or even to other parts of the country. So you have way more opportunity to sell your items when you export, but also you have a chance to diversify against cycles in your sales cycle. And I think we see that in the aerospace community a lot where, certainly we have seen that now, right? So you protect yourself against sales cycles or even cyclical things here that we have in the United States, growing seasons. I know that you've probably all bought tomatoes from South America, right? Or other kinds of produce because we're not growing during the winter times and they are. So there's many reasons, mostly though, that your consumer market is really outside of the United States. And you protect yourself and you diversify, you grow your business. As a result, you grow the economy. And as a federal government agency, more exporting means more jobs, means a better economy. That's why we get excited about helping companies export. It's better for your bottom line. And I think most companies are trying to grow their business and have profitable businesses. So we would like to see you send your products somewhere else.
Isabel, any response?
Yeah, exactly what Diane said. 80% of the world's purchasing power is outside the US. Also, companies that export are 17% more profitable than those that don't. It helps companies become more resilient. Diversification is a key word right now. Like Diane said, the aerospace sector has been impacted with what's going on. And it creates jobs. It does. So many reasons to start exporting. Yeah.
Got it. But I guess my thought is I can remember back in the mid 80s when Starbucks was still a young company, and their approach to being overseas was thinking, well, maybe we can just send them coffee as a retail option. And now look at where Starbucks is today. I'm continually amazed as I travel, coming out of an airport, into an airport, out of a subway station in Nagoya, the first thing you see is a Starbucks. So, long-term commitment does have rewards. So I guess what I'd like to do at this point is ask all four of you if there are any parting comments you'd like to make. This includes Doug and Linda. Let me ask Doug, are there any parting encouragements that you'd like to share with people about, yes, you can do it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that the big challenge for us was deciding that it was something we wanted to do and sticking with it, which, again, for a company as small as ours and with limited resources, I mean, it took nearly 3 years before we got the first deposit from a sale overseas in our bank account. But it's totally worth it because, from our perspective anyway, I don't want to say it's on autopilot because it requires effort and production and everything to keep going, but it was really front end heavy on terms of getting the trademarks, getting the connections. So the short of it for us is now that we're going, we're sort of in a routine, and I mean, there's always going to be challenges that arise, but we were small, and it was sort of listening to some of the experts like we had today from our government, which really does a lot to encourage international trade, and buying in and deciding, hey, it's gonna take a couple of, for us, took a couple of years to get going, and it completely is paying off already. I mean, we've recouped all of our startup funds within the first 2 years, and now it's we're just looking at what we hope is pretty significant growth and a really diversified plan for production compared to most of our competitors here in Washington State.
Great, thanks, Doug. Linda.
Yeah, I think the number one thing would be, don't think you're too small. If you have a unique product, especially, jump in there. If the opportunity's there, jump into it. It's a great opportunity to diversify, like you said, but it also allows you to grow. I think the number one thing that I learned from doing this is don't count on anything. You can have, we want 30 head, we want to go to Thailand and we want to do it in January. Well, it may be November when they go. It could be, we're going to go on this date. This is our plans. Don't hold plan as, this is what we're going to do. You really have to have a lot of flexibility in there, but you also have to be very strong in what you're doing and what you say. If it's, I need payment on this date, if I'm going to hold these animals, if you really want it. So don't be afraid to speak up and say, this is where we are, this is what we're going to do, because they'll stick with you. They're not going to go someplace else because you're holding your ground. But just know you got to have a ton of flexibility in there and not get frustrated with it.
Great, thank you very much, Linda. We're at the witching hour here. So Diane and Isabel, thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us. As we said earlier, both of those PowerPoints will be distributed to all of our attendees, and the staff contact information in both of those, I believe, were there. So if somebody wants to follow up either with Diane or Isabel or with their industry specific staff, then please do. Thanks for joining us this morning. I hope you get something out of it. I hope you become an exporter. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Gary.
Yes, thank you all panelists, Matt, and attendees. We are looking forward to our next coffee chat, and this will be with UW President Anna Marie Kosei, and I hope I said that right, but I look forward to meeting her and finding out more about her operations there. So this is April 6th at 8:30 a.m. sharp, and we really appreciate you all for joining Economic Alliance in Snohomish County's coffee chat. So take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.